MLB the Show 24 is now out on early access, and I'm sorry that it's taken a few days to get the first video to you guys, but you know what time it is. It is time for my list of what teams I feel make the most fun rebuilds for franchise mode this year. The reason it took a while to make this video, aside from the fact that these videos just take a while to make and plan, is that I was making tweaks to the rosters. I went over the top 100 prospects list on MLB.com and added anyone I felt was missing and arranged potentials to kind of flow correctly within the top 100 in my opinion. I also added the three main Japanese signings in Shota Imanga for the Cubs, Yuki Matsui for the Padres, and of course Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Dodgers. There are a lot of teams that would make for great rebuilds, and of course that includes staples to these lists like the Detroit Tigers and Washington Nationals and Pittsburgh Pirates, but I wanted to be somewhat different this year, so I'm gonna give you 5 pure rebuild teams and 5 outside the box ones. You ready? Me too. Let's get it. We'll start with the pure rebuilds, and number 5 is the Colorado Rockies. I did the Rockies back on MLB the Show 22 and it was really fun. Now, I think the Rockies might be the worst team in baseball. They do have Nolan Jones, who hit .297 with 20 homers, and he seems to be a budding star. Ezequiel Tovar also showed some nice potential, but some of the players who formerly led this squad a couple of years ago, like Ryan McMahon, German Marquez, and Charlie Blackmon, have been really showing their age and decline. Chris Bryant's contract is aging like spoiled rotten milk, and Chase Dollander, Adael Amador, and Yanquiel Fernandez are now the hopeful prospects, where Zach Veen, Benny Montgomery, and Joe Rock seem to be fading away in the distance. This team that's never won a World Series may still be looking for one for quite a bit longer. Number 4 is the Kansas City Royals. The Royals really just have Bobby Witt Jr. The good thing is that they signed him for a really long time, but outside of him, guys like Brady Singer and Vinny Pasquantino are aging a bit without really taking that next step up. Can Maikel Garcia do it himself? Guys like Kyle Isbell, Chris Bubich, Asa Lacy, MJ Melendez, and Nick Pratto, who were once all touted, are now looking like they won't be stars at all. The hard part is done here. Bobby Witt Jr. is a superstar to build around, but building around him with a mid-market budget may not be the easiest job to do. It's a good challenge to get this 2015 World Series winner back to the promised land. Number 3 is the Oakland Athletics. For one, you can move them to Vegas and give them a new ballpark like I did in MLB The Show 23. Entire playlist is in the description. For 2, they're bad, but because they were so bad last season, they tested out a lot of young guys and found guys like Zach Geloff, who you can build around. Esteury Ruiz can be another one of those, as well as Shea Langoliers, and I think Tyler Soderstrom has a world of potential. Outside of that, this is going to be a rebuild where you need to draft and draft well, because outside of Jacob Wilson, there are no blue chip A prospects, and you have a very low budget of just $89 million. That's a yikes. So if you really want a money ball, this is the rebuild to do it with. Number 2 is the Chicago White Sox. I know I just said the Rockies might be the worst team in baseball, but as of right now, I would probably bet on the White Sox to win the least games in baseball this year if I were a betting man. Luis Robert Jr. is wonderful to build around with great power at 26 years old, in his prime, but his contract is only 4 years long, and this is a team that might take longer to get them ready by the time his contract year is looming. Eloy Jimenez, Garrett Crochet, Michael Kopech, Yoan Moncada, Andrew Vaughn, Gavin Sheets, the list goes on of players the White Sox thought were budding into stars that have just become inconsistent starters for them. They bring in Drew Thorpe, Jairo Iriarte, and Samuel Zavala as B potential prospects in the Cease trade, but do you trust them to develop them at all after all of the talent that has gone awry over those years? I don't, but can you get the job done? My number 1 and best pure rebuild of MLB The Show 24 is the Los Angeles Angels, and that is because I believe they have the best storyline in the game this year. Many got upset at me for trading Mike Trout later in my MLB The Show 21 Marlins franchise. I traded for him and they were shouting it was unrealistic. realistic. There have now been many people screaming for the Angels to trade Trout away, but Mike Trout is such a quiet superstar. He hasn't asked for it. You have two choices: build around him, and you wouldn't have a ton to work with in that regard, with Anthony Rendon eating $30 million as a sub-70 overall C potential old man, or you can trade Mike Trout and get a haul to start the rebuild with him being 32 years old. I think the Angels have the best storyline of any of these 5 teams because they haven't won a World Series since 2002, and their last playoff win was in the ALCS of 2009. Trout started playing in 2011. This team has had the best player in baseball for each of the last 13 seasons, whether you believe it was Trout or Ohtani, and they have completely squandered it. They need a real executive who can make the right choices for this franchise. Is that person you? Well, now that we got the pure rebuilds out of the way, let's take a look at some outside the box thinking rebuilds. Number 5, the New York Yankees. Don't run away, listen. Don't go anywhere without hearing this. Garrett Cole is great, but we're thinking long haul here, and he's getting paid until he's 38 years old. Gross. Nestor Cortez is cool, but he's 29 and he's going to want free agent money in just 2 years. Carlos Rodon is starting to look like a bad signing until he's 36. The Yankees have no pitching prospects to speak of in the starter stable or the bullpen. Clay Holmes is a great closer, but he's hitting free agency at the age of 32. They may not have their catcher of the future in the building. Rizzo might barely make the end of his contract. Gleyber Torres is going to be a free agent at the end of the season at 28 years old, and he's not going to be worth giving a long contract to. DJ LeMahieu's bad signing is over in 3 years. Volpe. Now, Volpe is the guy to build around. Verdugo's all right for now. Judge is the old man on this team, retiring as a Yankee at the end of this rebuild. And it makes me feel bad for Dominguez and Jones. Juan Soto's going to hit free agency, but he might be worth paying. Not for one of them 10-year deals, though. Designated hitter Giancarlo Stanton for $18 to $31 million per until he's 39 is also extremely gross. So that basically tells you that in 5 years you can rid yourself of all these awful contracts. Judge would be 36, Volpe would be 27, and hopefully enough prospects could be amassed to build the Yankees, who haven't won a championship since 2009, into the type of Yankee team that Joe Torre would actually be proud of. One that could actually win 4 out of 5 titles, because if you choose the Yankees, the goal is not just to win one, it's to win many. Number 4 is the San Francisco Giants. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to my homie Octagonal Gaming, who is doing a Giants franchise on his channel. Go check him out, and if you do, tell him I sent you. The Giants are a team that tries so hard to stay competitive recently that they have no longevity and continuously build through free agency, which has been keeping them in MLB purgatory. Outside of Kyle Harrison and Marco Luciano, the Giants don't have many great prospects on the horizon either. It's a team you really need to give direction to, and always gives you the budget to put the right moves together. They do spend, they just really don't spend well. Go over to my man Octi's channel, check out his episode number 1, he really breaks it down for you. Number 3 is the Minnesota Twins. The Twins are weird. They are always good enough to win the Central, but I don't think they're ever good enough to make it to a World Series. MLB the Show might have a fan working for them though, because they do tend to sim decent despite being a team that had a hard time winning a playoff game until this past season. They have a roster full of good to very good players, but no one I would consider a super long-term answer or a superstar in this league, outside of potentially Royce Lewis and Edouard Julien. Brooks Lee, Emmanuel Rodriguez, and Walter Jenkins are their only blue chip prospects, and I just think that this team's going to need quite a lot more to compete with the Astros, Rangers, Rays, or maybe even the Orioles in the AL. Number 2 for me is the Milwaukee Brewers. Now this could be really fun. For one, funding was passed for the Brewers to renovate American Family Field, so you could have fun in the stadium creator if that's for you. But as far as the team goes, the Brew Crew doesn't seem to have a direction. With a team that has a lot of starters that are entering their prime as merely average to above average players, or exiting their primes entirely, Jackson Chourio, one of the best prospects in baseball, is going to be a great start and the man to build this entire franchise around. After that, you just need to find the rest. The great news is, other than the Christian Yelich contract, there really isn't much holding you back from making moves and making this team in your image. All right, get ready for my number one outside the box rebuild in MLB the Show 24. You sitting down? It's the New York Mets. I know they have this insane budget, right? Actually, it's less than the Yankees in the video game for me. But hear me out. Let's go through this. Starting pitching is on the old side. Everyone is, with Senga being the only long-term signing at 4 years, and there are 0 good prospects. They have decent relief pitching, but again, 0 prospects. Not that they're easy to really find in the show. Edwin Diaz is a great closer, but he's a guy who missed all of last year, being paid $20 million until he's 35. That's not exciting. I love Francisco Alvarez's power, and a hitting catcher in New York is exciting. Hello, Piazza. Oh, Alonso. No doubt one of the best power hitters in the game. With no contract after the season, trade him, let him walk, sign him? That would be crazy. Jeff McNeil is making far too much for too long with okay prospects sitting behind him. Brett Beatty may have been jumped way too early as he hasn't played too wonderfully, but the Mets haven't had much choice, and now you won't either if you choose to rebuild them. I love Lindor. He was once my favorite player in all of baseball, but $34 million till he's 38, I wouldn't have even paid him that. With Acuna and Williams sitting behind him, makes it even worse for the franchise. Nimmo, I get he's a fan favorite. My parents love him. But $20 million for the next 7 years is insane. Insane. They have been looking for center field forever. Maybe Drew Gilbert could be the guy? Cause it isn't Starling Marte anymore. This man thankfully only has 2 seasons left. Now the Mets are a team who have overspent so much on less than amazing guys, or have given crazy long deals to good players who will no doubt stunt prospect growth in the organization. I think they are a hot mess, and they do not have any prospects. Hopefully you have enjoyed my suggestions today. Please make sure to tell me which teams you are going to run with for franchise mode in the comments down below, and please check out my MLB the Show channel, Moneyball Maniac. It'll be linked in the description. I love y'all.